Hey, 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 and welcome back to this week's episode of the Inclusive Networker podcast. I am so excited about episode number 4 of this series. We are here with Dr. Patrice Buckner Jackson. If you don't know me, I am Dr. Ramona. I am your host. And Dr. Patrice Buckner Jackson, also known as PBJ, she has been here with us for the past 3 weeks, and now we are on week 4, discovering your brilliance. It has been absolutely amazing. If you have not watched or listened to episodes 1, 2, or 3, you have to go back right now. Stop this one, go back to episode number 1, and you are going to just absolutely love every single thing that she has talked to us about. We have gone on a journey from disrupting burnout and being in this place where we're burnout in our life, in our business, in our work, to now we are going to talk about discovering your brilliance. Dr. PBJ is an absolute expert on discovering your brilliance and disrupting burnout. She gives educators the strategies for accomplishing purposeful work without burnout. She has been an educator for almost 25 years and an executive coach for more than 10 years. She founded Educare Training and Consulting, LLC, out of a purpose for pouring into those who pour out so much. She leads her community to serve well without paying that ultimate price. And she is the creator and host of the Disrupting Burnout podcast. If you have not checked out her podcast, go over there too. You have absolutely got to listen. And she is the author of the soon-to-be released book, Disrupting Burnout, the Professional Woman's Lifeline to Finding Purpose. As I have said in the other episodes, I have read this book. It is absolutely one of the most transformative books I have ever read in my life. I was at the point of burnout. I have moved into discovering brilliance and am still working through that process. And this book has been absolutely amazing for me. It is one that you will want to keep on your shelf and that you will want to refer back to. I'll tell you a funny story. I was supposed to be sending my beta copy back to Dr. PBJ. So I'm going to apologize right now because the thing is so good that I do not want to release it. And so I am going to disrupt burnout and release all that. But this book is so hard for me to get rid of. So I'm excited about the final version coming out because I want to have that thing in hand so that I can reference these strategies constantly because it is so good. It is so good. You all have to get it. So Dr. PBJ, my friend, my absolute inspiration, welcome to the Inclusive Networker podcast.
Dr. Listen, I have had a ball sharing with you and your community over the last few weeks. Thank you for everything that you mean to my life. I'm not even mad that you kept the beta copy. Listen, because what you contributed, I think I mentioned last week, even down to the title. Y'all, I got to tell this. So, I wrote this book and, I've had this book in me for a while, but now I know that there are some things I needed to experience and learn before I could really release it. But when it was time, it just flowed. It flowed freely. And y'all, I got to the point of titling the book and I just couldn't get there. I couldn't figure out what I needed to call it. And, people have different opinions and have said different things. And I mean, to the point that I felt physically ill. I felt so overwhelmed. And Dr. Ramona had read it cover to cover. And I texted her or called her and I said, "Oh, I'm struggling. This is what I'm feeling like." And she's like, "Oh, this is the name of the book." And as soon as she gave me that title, all of the pressure released. Everything. I just felt peace. I felt peace. She's like, "Absolutely, this is the title. This is what this book does." And that's your brilliance, Dr. Ramona. I mean, we're talking about brilliance today.
Yes.
That is your brilliance. You have an innate, unique brilliance, a gift for seeing how the pieces fit together. And so, friends, when you think about brilliance, I want you to think about the natural, innate gift, the unique gift that flows freely from you without you trying. A brilliance is not something you've been trained on. You didn't learn it and you can't earn it. It's not something that somebody taught you per se. You may have learned some things to enhance your brilliance, but you would have done them well anyway because it just naturally flows from you. It is who you are. It is the gift to the world that we received when you arrived. That's your brilliance. So, Dr. Ramona, your brilliance is so clear to me. Was it always clear to you?
No, not until I read your book. I'm telling you, you know, when they say I was this years old when I figured out my brilliance, I was 45 years old. When I figured out my brilliance, when I read this book, I'm telling you, and it was so clear because you had an example that you were talking about, that moving through crisis, being calm in crisis was your brilliance. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, I get it. I get it. And so when I started to think through it and I answered the questions, there's a lot of thought process in this book to help you get there. So, you know, we're talking about this on this podcast, but you got to get the book to really get your brilliance. You're not going to get it from just listening to the podcast. You got to go through the exercises. You got to do the work, right? You got to do the hard work. So, as I was going through it, I started to think about, and there's one question you asked, what does your family or people always come to you for? Right.
Yeah.
So, I started to think about that, and I was like, they always come to me about how do you put together systems, right? So people ask me about health, about stuff in academics, and I started to realize, oh, I put puzzles together. I'm like, I said this before, you want me on your team if we're going to do some type of trivia or got to put together a puzzle, because I see the connection. You know, if we're talking about what I do at work, I connect the dots when my students are going through 2 semesters of health promotion program planning. I even wrote an article called Connecting the Dots, right? And I have not seen, I wrote that article, I think in, I don't know, 2014 maybe. Never thought about this process that I am helping people connect those dots. I'm attracted to systems, right? The work that I do in my business is systems, right? When people are saying stuff like on the last podcast, we were talking about the way that you get to burning out, right? And we're talking about the surviving the overwhelm and the burnout. And I just thought of, oh, that's sob, right? So all these things to me are like, oh, that's just what I always do. And people would always say, let Dr. Lawrence think of the title for this or the connection for this, because that's just what she does. And I just thought, that's just what I do, right? The connection to brilliance never crossed my mind. Never crossed my mind, because I think my brilliance is that I was trained as a public health practitioner and I understand how to do community engagement based on science, right? I understand how to do qualitative research. That's something that's really good that I do, right? And so I never thought about the fact that until I read in your book that this is not something that you've been trained on. You were born with this. So when I moved back before I got that degree, before I did all of the different things that I have now as accolades on my CV, I thought, I've been making connections all this time. And when my child, I'm teaching her, no, this is workflow. This is the better way to do this. Like, put a little load of clothes in the morning, and then go and do whatever you got to do. Because right when you're doing that, the clothes are going to be washing, and then you move, and I'm always thinking like that. And so I never put that together. But now I see it everywhere. I see it everywhere in my life. And it came from reading this book. I'm telling you.
What you're saying is gold. Because everyone who's listening to us right now, they have this is just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person. And we take it for granted. We don't think it's worth anything because it comes so easy. But as I hear you describe your brilliance, I'm like, I am not the one you want on your TV trivia, friend. Like, I'm not going to the escape room. I know I'm not going to make it out because that is not my gift. It does not flow naturally from me. I can learn something because I'm intelligent enough to learn. So I could learn something, but even then it might not stick. It might not stick because it is not connected to my innate, unique flow and who I am and what I bring. And as you were speaking, I'm going back because you said imposter boundaries. I'm still stuck. I'm still stuck on last week when you said imposter boundaries. I'm telling you, I'm going to use that. I'm going to give you credit, but I'm going to use that.
You can have it, sure.
Listen, but think about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Sometimes in imposter syndrome, you think somebody gave you a chance. Like somebody let you in. Somebody allowed you to come to the table. But I want to flip that today. I believe you were brilliant before you got there and they just saw your light. I believe you got that public health degree because you are a connector, because you are intimately acquainted with systems, and you walked into it because it was like a magnet to your brilliance.
Yeah.
That degree gave you access. It gave you keys in your hand, but the brilliance was already there.
Yeah.
The brilliance was already there. And I believe the same is true for our listeners today. The brilliance for your business, for your community, even how you run your family, how you support the people that you love, your brilliance is already there. You have a unique, innate brilliance. Let me say this. It's not your job title or even your level in your business. It is not your salary, how much money you're making now, or how much money you make later. Because I know a lot of successful people who have no idea what their brilliance is.
Yeah.
They've been promoted. They make the 6 figures. They've done the things, but they still don't know what they uniquely bring. So I want you to know that success and brilliance are not the same thing. Brilliance is fulfilling. Success is fleeting. You don't want success by itself.
Yeah.
There are a lot of successful people who suffer because they haven't done the soul work, as we've been talking about over these weeks. So it's not your title, it's not your level, it's not your salary, it's not what somebody else calls you. Brilliance is not a skill, right? So there are certain things that you can be taught to do. You can be taught to pitch. You can be taught to how to effectively use Instagram or social media. You can be taught skills, right? Brilliance is not necessarily a skill. It's not a skill. Brilliance is also not a talent. Now, this is where it gets risky, Dr. Ramona.
Okay.
Because with a talent, you are better than most. And people who don't have that talent will look at you and say, that's purpose. That's purpose. But the truth of the matter is, if you're honest, it takes you a lot of effort and a lot of energy to do that thing. Brilliance, not only are you good at it, but it's easy for you. A lot of our talents we have to work hard for. And the challenge is people get stuck in talent because it's good enough. It's good enough. Since I'm better than some people, this is good enough. This job is good enough. This role is good enough. This salary is good enough. But your soul knows that there's more. So you get to a certain...
Wait. Let's stop right
come on.
there. Okay.
Come on.
Okay, y'all. All right. So let's think on this part, because this is so good that we often, and there's a lot of people that's listening to this podcast who are very successful. Okay. So we're successful, but we're at the point where your soul is longing for more. And that is one way, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I think that is one way that we know that we haven't quite discovered our brilliance, or we're not actually operating in our brilliance, right?
Yes.
So help us walk through that a little bit. So we're at this place, you're successful, you've had great, success, money, you got the family, all of it seems to be together, but there's that longing
Yes.
there. So then how do we move past that? What are some of the things that we start to do to move into that brilliance?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's how you know you're there. The thing that you were so proud to do, the promotion that you were so proud to get, now you don't even want to wake up to go do it.
Mm.
You have to force yourself to get out of bed to actually go do the thing that used to light you up.
Mm-hmm.
You are getting pats on the back. You're getting the accolades. You're getting the atta girl, atta boy, atta person. But it doesn't mean much to you if you're honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because your soul knows something is missing. Your soul knows something is missing. When you recognize that you are missing brilliance, here's the simple thing. If I asked you right now, what is your brilliance? What do you bring to the world? What do we get when you show up? What is unique about you that you bring to your field and your business? If you can't answer that, friend, you don't know your brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have to do is what I call investigate your life. Your brilliance is not hidden. It's not lost from you. You identify your brilliance by looking back over your own life and connecting the dots. So for example, Dr. Ramona, you said you wrote a paper called Connect the Dots several years ago, before you even were aware of this thing called brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't make that up. You can't make these things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example of me. So like you said, my brilliance is walking people through crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I do. When I look back over my life now and as a child, for family and friends, I've always been the person you call when your life is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I remember being a child and adults would come to me with their problems. Like, ma'am, I'm 12. I don't know what to do about her marriage. I can listen. It's always happened.
Yeah.
Always happened. We can walk into the grocery store and Edward will say, now listen, we just going to get bananas. That's all we need. But I can walk in and I can see somebody who's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I can immediately see that their heart is broken. That's always been me, right? Professionally. So I worked on college campuses, but I worked in housing, the Dean of Students Office, the Vice President of Student Affairs. I've always been in charge of college crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had the nerve to write a dissertation on what? College crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know this then. I had no idea, but I just knew that when the day is bad and things are happening, I can help. Dr. Ramona, you may remember this. We were working together in April 2015 when we lost 5 of our nursing students in a car accident on I-16. And I was serving as Dean of Students. That day, I just knew what to do next. I didn't toil over, and it wasn't just me. Our chief of police, our counselors, our communications folks, like everybody was doing their part.
Mm-hmm.
But for my responsibilities that day, I just naturally kind of knew the next thing to do. As we went through that tragedy and we were supporting family members and parents and siblings, I remember people on our campus was kind of like, okay, PBJ, you were going to be the family connector. Like, you stay connected to these families, support these families. That wasn't coincidence. That's because that's what I do.
Wow.
That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it then. I didn't recognize it then. Honestly, if I'm honest, I used to think like, gosh, why does everybody bring me their troubles? Like, why does everybody brings me their troubles? Before I knew it was my brilliance, it used to frustrate me.
That's good.
But now I know I'm a magnet for it. They can't help it. They have to bring it to me because that's what I was created to do. That's what I was created to do. So as I look back over my life, childhood, now, my family roles, my professional roles, things I've done in ministry with my husband, like my research, even my coaching right now, I'm supporting people through burnout. That's a crisis. It's the theme of my life.
Yeah.
It's the theme of my life. So if you look back over your life, look back over your story, what is the theme of your life? And I do need to say this, Dr. Ramona, because sometimes when we look back over our story, we want to skip the hard parts. We want to skip the trouble and the tragedy. But I've got to say, it all matters.
Okay.
All of it matters. All of it gives you cues towards your brilliance and what you were created to give the world. And what does this have to do with burnout? When you know your brilliance, you don't have to fall into that cycle anymore because you know what you show up to bring. And it's interesting. I don't know if you've experienced this, Dr. Ramona, but it's like this intrinsic motivation. It's this fire.
Yeah.
This fire that you get when you know what that brilliance is, and you're like, I'm supposed to do that. That's what, not in a prideful way, but in a responsible way.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm equipped for that. I can help. I can help. So yeah, you got to investigate your life. You got to look back through your life and find the common theme. What is the theme of your life?
Yeah, and that makes me think about we're often trying to think of how do I triage things and how do I say no and what gives a foundation for my no, right? So when we know our brilliance, it tells us when to say yes and when to say no, which then helps us to prevent that burnout, right? And so I think that's so important, is that we've got to make that connection that I've got to know my brilliance if I'm not going to get back into this sob cycle with burnout, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you said you know your no and you know your yes, right? I can't tell you the number of people that I meet and they say, I just got to get out of this job. Like, it's helped me find my next job. I just got to get out. And I call that escaping. They just want to run. But I encourage people, unless you are in an abusive situation, if it's abusive, we want you to talk to a counselor, an HR professional, a pastor, somebody who can help you get out of that abuse. But if it's not abusive, I encourage folks to walk through what I call the heart work strategies, these strategies we're talking about, the heart work strategies. Walk through the strategies first, because then you will have more clarity on where you're going and what is a fit for your brilliance. Without the strategies, you're taking you with you. You're taking the sob cycle with you. And you don't, even in a new place, you can experience the same thing because you did not disrupt the cycle first. So that's why it's so important to walk through these strategies, checking your backpack, building your boundaries, and discovering your brilliance, because you will have so much clarity on where your yes is and where your no is and what's a good fit for you and what you want to do next. But we don't take the time to do that work. So we end up jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another, just searching honestly for peace.
And it looks like, right, it's jumping from one thing to one thing to one thing, but it's jumping to the same thing that is in a different package, right? So like when we think about people getting married and they just keep getting married and they're marrying the same person in a different body. And so when we keep jumping businesses, we're back a different business, but the same stuff we're bringing to it, right? The same stuff in the backpack. And so it's so important for us to go into these strategies, because this is the type of stuff that people want to skip, because it is the harder work than gathering a skill. The hard work can be hard work because we are looking at ourselves, right? And sometimes we don't want to do that. And so this is just, it's actually absolutely critical
Mm.
for our success and for us to be able to move forward and thrive and to get out of this cycle of burnout. So yes, I love it.
And let me say this. For some people, it may be a different business, but I'm
Mhm.
convinced for most people, you're probably in the right business. You just don't
Mhm.
know what you bring to the business.
Mm.
Because for Dr. Ramona and I, before we even knew our brilliance, we were already on the path. We
Mhm.
were already drawn to things and opportunities that were connected to our brilliance. We just didn't know why. It just
Mhm.
seemed like a good opportunity. There's a natural, innate part of you that draws you to things that connect to your brilliance. You just didn't understand the connection.
Mhm.
So I want to encourage you. It may not be the business structure. It may not even be the product that's the problem. Maybe it's the soul work. Maybe it's the
Mhm.
heart work that you need to do so that you can be clear. Friend, you need to know that you're significant to the business. The
Mm.
business is not just significant to you.
That's good.
You are significant to the business. You bring something to your business like nobody else. It doesn't matter how many people are in your company or who have businesses within your company. They're not you. And they don't bring what you bring. So even if all of you sell the same jewelry, what do your clients get that's different than the business owner next to you?
Mhm.
If you sell supplements, what do your clients or what do your team members experience that's different than the business owner next to you? And not that they're wrong, just different.
Mhm.
And it's time for you to stand up in that brilliance and live that difference, like embrace it. And you know what, Dr. Ramona, sometimes we fight it. Sometimes we fight it because it doesn't feel like it fits into the mold or,
Mhm.
it doesn't align with what we've been taught but that the thing that you are holding back on is the thing that sets you apart.
Mhm. And I agree with that because, even as I was reading your book, thinking about making the connections, right? It's like it doesn't sound like it's something that's super technical or that I had to get a lot of education for. So I'm like, well, could this really be it? And I told you, I was like, this is what I'm thinking it is. And you're like, yes, that's absolutely what your brilliance is. Like I can see it totally. And so, but for me, it's like, it's just way too simple. Like that can't be it. And then now, how do I translate that into the work that I'm doing? Right.
Yes.
So once a person figures out their brilliance, if it's something like what you said, that it was the help walking people through a crisis, or like for me, connecting the dots these are very simple concepts. But then
Mhm.
how does a person move that into the work that they actually do?
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about making space for brilliance or maximizing brilliance, right?
Mhm.
So let's say in your company, in your business, you know that your brilliance is connecting the dots and bringing in systems and strategies and bringing
Mhm.
the pieces together. Then you want to find space or create a space within your current company that you can do that. So let's talk specifically about network marketing. If you have that gift of creating systems, then how do you take your products and present a system to your clients, not just one
Mhm.
product, but maybe a series of products, and help it fit together to resolve a need that they have? What is
Mhm.
a pain point they have that you can bring your brilliance to answer it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're a community builder. If you are a community builder, then maybe you focus more of your time on building the team. Not that you won't sell products, but you can help your clients become a community.
Mhm.
Maybe you establish a community platform for them to talk to each other, but then you
Mhm.
also build community in your team because you're a community builder. So
Mhm.
you're going to do that no matter where you are, what part of the business you're doing. So whatever brilliance you bring, create space within the work to shine and flow in that way. Do the business according to your pattern.
Mm.
Do the business according to who you are. When I speak, right? When I do keynotes and workshops, I know there are going to be tears in the room. I know that. I know at the end of my speech, I need to hang around. People will want to share with me. They will want a hug. They will, and they always say, "I'm so sorry, I'm crying." I'm like, friend, I expected it. It's okay, because that's just what I was created with. So I make space in my business to support people in that way, because I expect it to happen. I know it's going to happen now because I know what my brilliance is. So make space in your business for the brilliance that you bring.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. So, as we're thinking about discovering brilliance and how we've moved from disrupting burnout to now we're at our brilliance, is there anything else that we need to know or do as we're discovering brilliance?
Yeah, I would just say, and we mentioned this earlier when we were talking about backpack, how this process, these hard work strategies are not a one and done, right? It's a lifestyle. So you continue, as you continue to grow. So discover the brilliance, acknowledge the brilliance, pursue the brilliance. You know, that's where you really get to work and start implementing that brilliance and bringing it into your business. Then you want to continue to check your backpack. You want to continue to adjust your boundaries to fit the life that you have today. So it's an ongoing brilliance will be the same. It's the same brilliance, but it does evolve. It does evolve. So it may look a little different, but it's the same brilliance. So I want you to expect it to evolve. So Dr. Ramona, for you, you know, as a child, your brilliance may have been you were very systematic in how you got your chores done or how you got your schoolwork done, and people would like, that child is really organized, you know, that, or, you know, taking care of whatever you had to take care of. Now, in the season of life that you're in now, your brilliance is in your business and raising a family and taking care of a household and being a professor and helping people accomplish their doctorate degrees. Brilliance evolves. It evolves. So continue to not just identify it, but allow it to evolve and grow into what it's going to be for the new season of your life.
Wow. And that's so exciting too, right? Because we're not just going to say, okay, we discovered our brilliance and now, okay, I got to deal with this particular brilliance for the next 50 years. I'm going to be bored with this brilliance. No, it's a process where it's constantly evolving, where we constantly, and for me now, after having read the book, now I'm like surprised, kind of like, ooh, that's how my brilliance is showing up. Like, ooh, there's a piece of brilliance today. You know, it's really exciting to see it because it was not hidden to me, but I didn't recognize it for so long. And now when I see it all the time, I'm like, oh goodness, yes, there it is again, my brilliance. And I'm so excited. And so it's really nice to be able to hear that, yes, it evolves. You're going to constantly just be surprised at how it shows up, and it's going to be something that's exciting for you to see, and it's going to be something that you can really identify with when you're in meetings and when you're building your team, and you're say, that's where I need to fit in, that's where I am. And now you, with your brilliance, can do this other thing, and now I make space not only for my brilliance but for your brilliance, and we work together, and we really have this thriving team and thriving business and just thriving life. So yes, I love it.
I just want to add one more thing. I think it's important that we carry it forward. Right? So you identifying your brilliance and living in that power, but now you know what to look for in your daughter. You know what to look for in your son, and you know how to help them see it. You know how to articulate it so that they can see that, wow, there's brilliance in me. But not the children. What about the people on your team?
Yeah.
Help them understand how they're significant to the vision, especially in network marketing. Sometimes people enroll and it's like, okay, I am working towards the goal of the national director or whatever the levels are in your business, right? but they need to understand why that impacts them. Why is it important to them? Where's their place in the vision?
Yeah.
So once you know your brilliance, talk to the people around you. Have them investigate their life. Even as you are recruiting people to your team, ask them these questions. What is your unique brilliance? What do you bring to the world like nobody else? And they may say, I don't know. And that's okay. But let them know, listen, we believe in operating in brilliance here. So we're going to support you and help you discover it so that you can maximize that brilliance. Friend, I'm telling you, not only intrinsic motivation, but there's a loyalty that comes from that. People need to know what they bring to the organization. They need to know they're significant. And brilliance is that significance that they bring.
Oh, wow. Just drop the mic. Let me take this mic and just throw it down. Oh, Dr. PBJ, this has been an amazing series. I am telling you all, in the Inclusive Networker community, you have got to get this book, Disrupting Burnout, the Professional Woman's Lifeline. You have got to get this book, because it is going to affect your life, your business, everything. I, again, have read it. I have discovered my brilliance, and I'm continuing to go along this path with Dr. PBJ. Dr. PBJ, thank you for your work. And thank you for the sacrifices and all of the things that you have done to get to the point where you can share this with the world. And, you know, the hard work that you did to make sure that you can pay this forward, and you are paying it forward in a big, big way. And I'm so excited about all that's going to come from this book and all the lives that are going to be changed. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this.
It's my honor. It is my honor. And thank you for supporting me in the journey. Thank you for being there in the rock bottom moment. Thank you for being there as I did the work in disrupting burnout, and for being there now as I share this with other people. None of us can do it without our community, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that we're in each other's tribe.
Yes. Well, thank you all for listening to each of these 4 episodes. That ends the series with Dr. PBJ, but you need to go and check out the book. You will find all of the information in the show notes, and she is going to just rock your world with this thing. It is going to make you think, it is going to challenge you, but it is going to change you, and that is what I'm so excited about. So thank you all for listening to this episode and this series in the Inclusive Networker podcast. Thank you, Dr. PBJ, for your wonderful, wonderful contribution to this series, for helping us to disrupt burnout and to discover our brilliance. So thank you all, and we will see you on the next episode of the Inclusive Networker podcast. Bye.